This is a tragic and dark story. I will tell it in the first person. It all began when I was in elementary school. A self-made guy came to our house, trying to recruit people into a new religious cult. At first, my mother politely refused and sent him away. But that master came back every 3 days, relentlessly urging my mother to join. My mother was very strong, meanness-willed, so after listening quietly, she would tell him sorry and say maybe next time, gently turning him down, and then he would leave. But he kept coming more and more often. One day, my father happened to be home. He spoke sternly, pushing the master away firmly. The master looked at my father and said, "No matter how hard you refuse, it's fate that brought you here." After saying that, he left. To be cautious, my father also spoke with the police. From that day, nearby officers started patrolling regularly, but things still went wrong. A week later, my mother disappeared. During the days she was missing, that same master came again. This time he was forceful, saying, "See, I told you, if you sincerely believe, your mother will come back." At the time, at home, it was just me, my sister, and my little brother. We were scared. The master said, "He'll come back when your father is here next time." And then he left again. After he left, my sister hurried to call our father. He said he was coming home right away and hung up. I comforted my crying brother, silently wishing my mother would return soon. But in the end, she never did. My sister contacted our teachers at school, explaining our situation. She asked if we could take leave for a while. Because of this, the police and school staff came over often, checking on us. My father held a high position at his company, and it was financial closing season. He couldn't take time off. I was in middle school then, involved in club activities. But sensing how bad things were at home, I decided to go straight home as soon as classes ended. Our teachers were worried too. Days went by with just the 3 of us, me, my sister, and my brother. Sometimes, my sister's homeroom teacher would come over to share meals with us. Having an adult around made me feel a little safer, a little more secure. For a time, the master who kept pushing religion stopped coming, so things got quiet, peacefully even. Still, my mother was found. Soon after she disappeared, we had already reported her missing to the police, but there was no progress. The police came regularly to ask for updates, but my mother never contacted us. We were stuck, trapped in a dead end. We were so desperate that we didn't want to think about it anymore. Deep down, all of us believed Mom was coming back. Then one day, the school held a sports day. My brother, sister, and father all came. It was the first time in a long while we were genuinely happy together. After the event, we went to a Welsh and family restaurant and treated ourselves to a somewhat fancy meal. But when we got home, something was wrong. The front door was unlocked. Inside, from the hallway to the Buddhist altar room, there were footprints everywhere. My father shouted we're being robbed, but it was a robbery. The Buddhist shrine was closed, then sealed shut with blue tape. Seeing this strange scene, my sister screamed and began uncontrollably. My brother started crying in fear. My father was stunned, frozen. We thought someone might still be inside, so we huddled together. Dad called the police immediately. One nearby officer arrived first. Then a few more showed up. Dad explained the situation to them as we helped my pale sister to her room. All 3 of us cried loudly. The official verdict was a break-in, but after investigating, nothing had been stolen. The police knew in their hearts it was that cult woman. They investigated the neighborhood thoroughly afterward. That's when we learned that on the day of the sports event, a black van had been parked in front of our house. After that, the investigation stalled. Then, a month later, the police finally found my mother. But what they found was her dead body. She'd died far away, in a neighboring county. She was found hanging in the mountains of Gunma. Her hands were tied behind her back. Strangely, the rope around her hands was tied very loosely, loose enough she could have untied it if she wanted to. The police treated her death as murder, not suicide. But they had no leads. My mother had been missing for almost a year. Where had she been all that time? What had her life been like? Her death left so many questions, mysteries. As the investigation stalled, more incidents began happening at home, one after another. Bad things kept happening. One day, my sister was attacked on her way home from shopping. She was beaten so badly she was unrecognizable. Then she was dragged into a bathroom and assaulted. In the middle of it, a passerby with a strong sense of justice intervened and saved her. The attacker was caught later. He was a man with some intellectual disability. He ran out from his parents' watch when no one was looking and ambushed my sister. The worst part, this happened in a crowded public place, but no one stopped him as he dragged her into the bathroom. To this day, I still harbor a grudging resentment toward the onlookers nearby. I know logically, they couldn't have done much, but I just can't forgive those people who stood by and watched. Afterwards, my sister tried hard to pull herself together and live on, but it was only by forcing herself. Eventually, the weight crushed her. One day, I came home from school and found her in her room, having taken a massive amount of sleeping pills. I remember seeing yellow foam bubble out of her mouth. That scene haunts me still. She was rushed to the hospital immediately, but she later attempted suicide again, and this time, she really left us. After the funeral, my father resigned from his job. The company paid him a substantial severance package, but the blow was heavy. During the day, he looked blank, lost in thought. When my brother and I spoke to him, all he could manage were quiet, distracted answers. Okay. The neighbors, especially the aunties nearby, perhaps sensing what we were going through, did their best to help us. They even brought us dinner sometimes. One day, after school, I came home and found my father alone, leaning on the family altar. He seemed to be looking at pictures of my mother and sister. He drank alcohol all day long. I was so heartbroken. I wrapped my arms around him and cried hard. I'm not usually a kid who cries, so he looked surprised. Then he whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." We cried together, tangled up in grief. Later, I went to high school. My brother started middle school. My father began working from home, using the skills from his old job. His former company gave him a lot of freelance work. Meanwhile, I took on all the housework. I wanted my brother to have time to study properly, to live just like other kids, focused on school and clubs, without worries. But things never went as planned. One day, on his way home from school, my brother was hit by a car. He was pinned between the vehicle and a wall and died. The driver was a young man. At first, he claimed it was an accident, careless driving, but later, he confessed someone had paid him a large sum to do it. The police found who was behind it: the same great god who had come to our house, trying to recruit our family into his cult. After he was arrested, he explained that he hated our family for disobeying him. But some things were strange. This great god wasn't part of any established religion. He created his own cult just to recruit followers. That made everything all the more twisted. The break minus in at our house. It was probably him too. The many footprints found inside matched the great god, and I even suspect he might be behind my mother's disappearance. But he skillfully avoided the police's questions. No proof of identity, no background info, just a lot of money, but no one knew where it came from. In the end, after everything, we knew nothing about this man. It left me bitter and helpless, angry, but powerless. Later, he died in custody. Police said it was a heart attack. After all of that, My father and I decided to move. I wanted to leave, too. There were more sorrowful memories at home than happy ones. I didn't want to be a burden on the people nearby. I felt bad enough already. We prepared for the move, taking only the bare minimum of things, bit by bit. Then, one Thursday night, a week before the move, my father and I went to the local bathish together. It was simple, but it felt wonderful, warm and comforting. For a moment, I felt a flicker of happiness. My father even smiled for the first time in ages. That feeling made me believe the future could still hold hope and happiness. But on our way back home, we heard sirens coming from our neighborhood. Our house was on fire. I stared at the raging flames and couldn't say a word. My father was stunned too. He stared at the burning house, muttering softly, "It's gone. Everything's gone." In his eyes, I could see the fire reflecting back, a blaze that burned away any trace of hope. The investigation continuing seamlessly from the previous segment, the authorities determined it was an arson case. Among the burned debris, they found pieces of the sword's material. The sword had been soaked in something like fuel. But despite all that, they never caught the culprit. The nearby houses were also damaged. I remember my father kneeling on the ground, while the neighbor lady whose house was hit held me tightly and cried. After that, we moved. But after we moved, my father changed, became strange. Almost like Hed lost his mind. When he worked at home, he would talk as if my mother, sister, and younger brother were still with him. Just like before, they would be there, by his side, saying things as usual. "Dad, you're farting again." Or, "Next week, I want to go to the Ocean World amusement park." I often saw those same things my dad talked about. Like when I got home from school, everyone would be there. My deceased family appeared, making me feel a bittersweet happiness. In the mornings, I'd see my mother sometimes cooking. I didn't know if what I was seeing was some kind of ghost or spirit, or an illusion. All I knew was I desperately told myself that it was a hallucination. Just a hallucination. So I ignored it completely. Because if I let myself believe it was really happening, then it'd be lost. My mind would break for sure. But one day, while eating dinner with my father, I heard my mother's voice from the kitchen. She said, "We don't have any soy sauce." I looked at my father, and our eyes met. He seemed to have heard it too. Then, my father laughed as if Hed gone mad and said, "Mom, I'll go to the supermarket right now to buy some." After he spoke, his face suddenly turned serious. Without warning, he lunged at me, grabbed my neck. The pain was unbearable. I felt like I was suffocating. At that moment, he snapped out of it, back to himself. He looked sad and whispered, "What's wrong with me? Why did I do that?" Over and over he said those words. Then he walked to the balcony, and right in front of me, he jumped. So many absurd things had happened in succession. In the end, my father completely lost his mind. I think when he grabbed my neck, maybe he intended to kill me first, then himself. And just like that, my father was gone, leaving just me alone. Later, my uncle took me in. After I graduated high school, I found a job in Tokyo and started living on my own. In Tito now. Still single, still alone. But even now, I often see them in my room, my family. They live there with a familiar presence, appearing exactly as they were when they were alive. I also went to a hospital and was diagnosed with instability. Doctors gave me medicine, but I hardly took it. I couldn't forget the scene of my family's suicides. Thinking about how my whole family was wiped out, I was already at my limit. I never thought about ending it myself. It just seemed like some curse from that great God was haunting me, causing everything. Maybe one day, I too will suddenly die. Maybe, since I was a child, I saw strange things, what you call ghosts. Most of the ghosts I saw were no different from ordinary people. Sometimes, I couldn't even tell if they were alive or just spirits. As I grew older though, I saw them less and less. This happened when I was a second-year high school student, living in Okinawa. In a place like Okinawa during summer, you either go to the beach or the mountains. I had a boyfriend back then. On boring nights, we'd go out, talk, walk around, sometimes go to the sea to feel the breeze. One time, my boyfriend and I were eating out when two of his old high school friends showed up. The three of them chatted for a long time. I got a little bored, so just as I was about to head home, my boyfriend suggested we all go see the ocean. I agreed. The four of us walked along the Hishiki Bridge in Okinawa. Not wanting to interrupt their conversation, I walked behind them alone, enjoying the cool breeze. Suddenly, the three of them stopped and stared down below the bridge. I didn't know what they were looking at or discussing. I thought maybe they were checking the tide levels. But the beach was on the opposite side. If they wanted to check the water level, shouldn't they be looking there? Curious, I glanced down under the bridge. There, about 1 meter from the small waves, a boy maybe high school age slowly emerged from the water. He waved at us. Then I heard him shout, "Long time, no see. How are you guys?" I thought it was my boyfriend or one of his friends. I asked the three of them, "Hey, is that one of your friends?" They all turned their heads toward me. Looking at me, he said with a startled face, Where is someone there?" The group started to stir uneasily. I glanced again down at the sea beneath the bridge. The high school boy's figure was gone. In his place were 5 or 6 men and women, probably in their 20s or 30s. They were staring this way with strange grins on their faces. At that moment, it felt eerie, almost terrifying. I looked more closely. Only then did I realize those people were not alive. The three of them kept asking me what the boy looked like. I gave them a rough description. Their eyes widened as they stared at me, shock written all over their faces. Then they asked if the boy looked angry. I said no. He just seemed like he was greeting an old friend he hadn't seen in a long time. Since I was confused, I asked them in return if something had happened, why they looked so nervous. Then, they asked some strange questions. That's when my boyfriend told me what happened before. Back in high school, they had another close friend named Gongyi. One night when the four of them came here to swim, Gongyi said he wanted to swim over near Zhao Pokwai to check something. He swam alone but never came back. The body was later found near Zhao Pokwai. That's the exact spot where I had just seen the high school boy. My boyfriend pointed toward the place near Zhao Pokwai. After telling me all this, the three of them asked if Gongyi looked resentful. I said, not at all. He actually looked happy, like he was greeting us. After hearing that, the three of them silently stared out at the dark sea and began to cry, because even I didn't know what had happened the night those four swam out there. But thinking back on their reactions and the questions they asked, it felt strange. Weren't they good friends with the drowned boy? Why would Gongyi harbor resentment? The more I thought about it, the stranger it seemed. Maybe those three were hiding some secret, something they couldn't tell anyone. This all happened during the summer before I started college, when I was still in high school. At that time, there were no smartphones, not many forms of entertainment besides playing computer games. Most days meant just hanging out outside with friends. In those lazy summer days, besides having fun, there wasn't much else to do. So at night, when there was nothing to do, it was common to ride bikes around looking for friends or exploring the city. One night, a friend who lived in Banqiao called me, bored and restless. After chatting briefly, we decided to go find him. I lived in Xin Shaowang. To get to Banqiao, I had to cross the Daeon River by bridge. With that decided, I set off, riding my bike over the Xinhai Bridge toward Banqiao. The weather was cold and gloomy that night. The air had a chill that clung to your skin. I coasted slowly onto the quiet bridge. I was surprised there wasn't a single car on it. No vehicles behind me. Nothing but silence. Only one motorcycle passed, headed toward Ban Kiao. Not long after I got on the bridge, I spotted someone far ahead. It was a little scary. The person was riding a bicycle. From the silhouette, the hair was long, floating behind. Couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. They were wearing something unusually thin for the cold day, white, Nike gunmears-like dress. Strangely, they were riding standing up on the pedals. I watched carefully. It was a lady's bike style. Their pedaling was wild, exaggerated. It looked like they were struggling hard to move forward. Curious. I wondered who would be out here at midnight, riding like that. I slowed down to get a better look, trying to figure out if it was really a person or something else. The closer I got, the stranger it felt. Though they pedaled hard, their speed was uneven and slow, almost as if they weren't moving forward at all. The closer I came, the more a chill crept over me. Finally, I passed right beside them, deliberately slowing so I could take a good look. I turned my head and saw clearly a long manus-haired man. Maybe because of the dim light, his face looked pale, grayish. He ignored me, staring straight ahead with a twisted, pained expression, desperately stomping on the pedals. It was creepy and frightening, but I was relieved to see clearly that he was just a strange man, not some weird spirit or monster. After I passed him, I still felt uneasy, so I wanted to take another look at that person. I glanced into my rearview mirror and saw nothing. He was gone. A chill ran down my spine. The bridge was completely empty. No cars, no people. That guy had just vanished into thin air. Goosebumps broke out all over my skin. My hair stood on end. I quickly pedaled away from that spot, heart pounding, but the ordeal wasn't over yet. At the bottom of Xinhai Bridge, there's a sharp curve. As I rounded it heading downhill, I saw him again, the same man I'd encountered on the bridge. He was riding his bike the wrong way, pushing it uphill from beneath the bridge. Then, suddenly he charged straight at me from right ahead. This time, he moved fast, and like before on the bridge when he barely seemed to progress at all. I was terrified. My heart nearly burst from my chest. The shock hit so hard. The two of us almost collided. Instinctively, I swerved to avoid him. I nearly lost